When a humble food seller noticed a tired and hungry rickshaw puller sitting alone in an amusement park, he did something most people would never think twice about. Without asking for anything in return, he offered her a free meal and a warm smile. To him, she was just another hard-working woman trying to get through the day. But what he didn't know was that the woman sitting in front of him was secretly one of the richest women in the country. That simple act of kindness from the food seller changed everything. Stay with us until the end because this powerful story is packed with emotional twists, heartbreaking betrayals, unexpected revelations, and a beautiful reminder that true love isn't measured by money, status, or wealth. It's measured by the heart. And before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more emotional and unforgettable stories just like this one. Now let's begin. Sophia Williams stared through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of her luxurious penthouse apartment. Below her, the city sparkled with life. Cars moved through the streets like streams of light, and skyscrapers illuminated the night sky. To most people, Sophia's life looked perfect. She was 26 years old, beautiful, educated, and the only daughter of billionaire businessman Richard Williams. Her father owned one of the largest entertainment companies in the country, including hotels, resorts, shopping malls, and the famous Williams Wonder Park, the most visited amusement park in the nation. Money had never been a problem for Sophia. If she wanted a designer dress, she could buy 10. If she wanted to travel, a private jet was always ready. If she wanted a mansion, her father could purchase one before breakfast. Yet despite all the wealth surrounding her, Sophia felt painfully empty. The problem wasn't money. The problem was love. Ever since she was a teenager, she had struggled to know whether people genuinely liked her or simply wanted access to her father's fortune. At first, she hadn't paid much attention to it. She believed people were naturally good. She believed love was real. She believed that someday she would meet someone who loved her for who she was. Unfortunately, life kept proving her wrong. Her first boyfriend had constantly asked for expensive gifts. Her second boyfriend had secretly tried convincing her to invest in his failing business. Another man had proposed after only 3 months of dating and immediately started asking questions about her father's inheritance. One by one, every relationship collapsed. Each betrayal chipped away at her trust. Each disappointment made her wonder if genuine love even existed anymore. Then she met Daniel. Everything seemed different with him. Daniel was charming, handsome, and confident without appearing arrogant. Unlike the others, he never immediately talked about money. He made her laugh. He listened when she spoke. He remembered little details about her life. Most importantly, he made her feel normal. They met at a charity event nearly a year earlier. Sophia had attended reluctantly after her father encouraged her to support the fundraiser. Daniel had been volunteering at the event. They spent hours talking. By the end of the evening, Sophia found herself smiling more than she had in months. When Daniel asked her out, she agreed. For the first time in years, she felt hopeful. Months passed. Their relationship grew stronger. They traveled together. They attended concerts. They enjoyed quiet dinners away from cameras and public attention. Daniel often told her how special she was. He spoke about their future together. Sometimes Sophia caught herself imagining wedding dresses and family vacations. Sometimes she imagined introducing him to their future children. She knew it sounded foolish, but she was deeply in love. More deeply than she had ever loved anyone before. For nearly a year, Daniel gave her every reason to believe he was different. Every reason to believe he truly loved her. And that was what made the betrayal hurt so much. It happened on a cool Friday evening. Sophia had spent most of the day shopping for Daniel's birthday gift. She wanted the evening to be perfect. After careful consideration, she had purchased a beautiful vintage watch he had once admired while they were window shopping together. She smiled as she carried the carefully wrapped gift into her car. Daniel had invited her to meet him at an upscale restaurant downtown. She arrived nearly 30 minutes early. Traffic had been surprisingly light. Not wanting to sit alone inside, Sophia decided to wait near the outdoor garden area beside the restaurant. As she walked toward the entrance, she heard familiar laughter. Daniel's laughter. Her smile widened. She almost called out his name. Then she noticed he wasn't alone. He was standing with another man she recognized as his longtime friend, Marcus. The two men appeared completely unaware of her presence. Sophia was about to walk over when Marcus spoke. "You're a lucky man," Marcus said. "Seriously, dating the billionaire's daughter? Your future is set." Sophia paused. Something about the comment made her uncomfortable. Daniel laughed. "You think I don't know that?" Marcus grinned. "So what's the plan?" Daniel glanced around before lowering his voice slightly. Unfortunately for him, Sophia was close enough to hear every word. "The plan is simple." Sophia frowned. "The old man won't be around forever." Marcus chuckled. Daniel continued. "Once Sophia and I get married, everything changes." Sophia's stomach tightened. A strange feeling spread through her chest. Surely she was misunderstanding. Surely there was some explanation. Then Daniel kept talking. "I've spent nearly a year building trust. Her father owns billions. Hotels, resorts, the amusement parks, properties everywhere." Marcus nodded approvingly. "Smart." Daniel smirked. "Very smart." The gift box nearly slipped from Sophia's hands. Her heartbeat accelerated. No, this couldn't be happening. Not Daniel. Not the man she loved. Not the man she trusted. She remained frozen as Marcus asked the question that would destroy everything. "Do you actually love her?" Daniel laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not an embarrassed laugh. A genuine laugh. The kind people make when something is amusing. "Love is nice," Daniel said casually. "But let's be realistic. Opportunities like this don't come twice." Marcus burst out laughing. Daniel joined him. At that moment, Sophia felt her world collapse. The sounds around her disappeared. The city noise faded. The laughter became distant. It felt as though someone had reached into her chest and crushed her heart with their bare hands. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Every memory they shared flashed through her mind. Their first date. Their first vacation. The nights they spent talking until sunrise. The promises he had made. The future he had described. Every word suddenly felt fake. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every moment felt like part of a carefully planned performance. Sophia stepped backward quietly before either man noticed her. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. The birthday gift slipped from her fingers and landed softly in a nearby flower bed. She didn't even stop to pick it up. She turned and walked away. Then she walked faster. Soon she was running. By the time she reached her car, tears were streaming down her face. The driver looked startled. "Miss Sophia? Home," she whispered. The driver immediately obeyed. The entire ride passed in silence. Sophia stared out the window as tears continued rolling down her cheeks. Her chest hurt. Her stomach twisted. She felt humiliated. How could she have been so foolish? How could she have trusted him? How could she have ignored all the warning signs? The worst part wasn't losing Daniel. The worst part was realizing she had been right all along. Nobody wanted her. They wanted her father's money. When she finally arrived home, she rushed to her room and locked the door. She ignored calls from her friends. She ignored messages from Daniel asking where she was. She ignored everything. Hours later, Daniel continued calling. Sophia finally picked up. "Baby, where are you?" he asked. "I've been worried." The concern in his voice made her sick. The lies sounded effortless. Sophia closed her eyes. For a moment she considered confronting him. She considered telling him everything she had heard. But suddenly she felt exhausted. Too exhausted to argue. Too exhausted to cry. Too exhausted to explain. "It's over, Daniel." Silence. "What? It's over. What are you talking about? I don't want to see you again." "Sophia, wait." She ended the call. Then she blocked his number. A few seconds later she collapsed onto her bed and sobbed harder than she ever had before. Downstairs, Richard Williams heard his daughter's cries echo through the mansion. Concern filled his face. For years he had watched men enter and leave Sophia's life. For years he had watched her hope rise and then shatter. But this sounded different. This sounded worse. Much worse. As he stood outside her bedroom door that night, listening to her cry, he made a silent promise. Somehow, some way, he would help his daughter find the happiness she deserved. Neither of them knew it yet, but the answer would come from the most unexpected place imaginable. And it would begin inside an amusement park. The days following Daniel's betrayal were some of the darkest Sophia Williams had ever experienced. She barely left her room. The cheerful, energetic woman who once filled every room with laughter had become a shadow of herself. Her meals were often left untouched. Her phone remained switched off. The curtains in her bedroom stayed closed, blocking out the sunlight that once brightened her mornings. Most of the time, Sophia simply sat by the window staring into space. Her mind replayed Daniel's words over and over again. Once Sophia and I get married, everything changes. I've spent nearly a year building trust. The old man won't be around forever. Every sentence felt like a knife twisting deeper into her heart. The worst part wasn't losing Daniel. It was losing faith in people. Again. For years she had hoped to meet someone who genuinely loved her. Someone who saw Sophia Williams the woman, not Sophia Williams the billionaire's daughter. But once again, she had been proven wrong. At least that was what she believed. One afternoon, Richard Williams quietly entered his daughter's room carrying a tray of food. The billionaire rarely personally served anyone. Hundreds of employees worked for him. Yet when it came to Sophia, none of that mattered. She was his daughter, his greatest treasure. He found her sitting by the window exactly where she had been the previous day. And the day before that, Sophia barely acknowledged his presence. Richard placed the tray on a nearby table. "You haven't eaten much." "I'm not hungry." "You said that yesterday." Sophia remained silent. Richard pulled a chair beside her. For several moments, neither spoke. Finally, Sophia sighed. "Dad, have you ever wondered if some people are simply meant to be alone?" Richard frowned. "What kind of question is that?" "The kind someone asks when they're tired." His heart ached hearing the sadness in her voice. Sophia had always been optimistic. Even after previous heartbreaks, she had somehow found the strength to keep believing. But this time felt different. This time she sounded defeated. Richard leaned forward. "Tell me something." "What? Do you think every person in the world is dishonest?" "No." "Do you think every person is selfish?" "No." "Do you think every person is greedy?" Sophia shook her head. "Of course not." Richard smiled gently. "Then why are you acting as if you've met every man on earth?" Sophia looked away. "Maybe not every man, but enough of them." Richard couldn't entirely blame her. As one of the wealthiest men in the country, he had spent decades watching people change when money entered the conversation. He knew exactly how dangerous wealth could be. Money solved many problems, but it also attracted the wrong people. People who wore masks, people who lied, people who pretended, people like Daniel. "Sophia," Richard said softly, "your problem isn't that true love doesn't exist." She looked at him skeptically. "My problem is that it keeps finding someone else?" Richard chuckled. "No. Then what is my problem?" He paused. "People know who you are before they know who you are." Sophia frowned. The statement sounded confusing. Richard continued. "When someone meets you, what's the first thing they learn?" She shrugged. "That I'm your daughter." "Exactly." He pointed toward her. "They don't meet Sophia first. They meet Richard Williams' fortune." The words struck her harder than she expected, because deep down she knew he was right. Every relationship she'd ever had began with people already knowing about her family's wealth. Their opinions were formed before they ever learned her favorite color, before they discovered she loved reading novels, before they learned she enjoyed simple things like ice cream and long walks. People saw her last name. Then they saw dollar signs. Richard leaned back in his chair. "You've spent your entire life introducing yourself as Sophia Williams." "That's my name." "Yes, but maybe it's also the problem." Sophia stared at him. "What are you trying to say?" A mischievous smile appeared on Richard's face. A smile she recognized immediately. It was the smile he wore whenever he had an unusual idea. And unusual ideas from Richard Williams often led to unforgettable adventures. What if nobody knew who you were? Sophia blinked. What? What if you met people who had absolutely no idea you were my daughter? She laughed for the first time in days. It wasn't a happy laugh. It was disbelief. Dad, that's impossible. Is it? Yes. Richard crossed his arms. I own one of the largest amusement parks in the country. Sophia nodded slowly. So? The park employs thousands of people. She still didn't understand. Richard continued. Security guards, cleaners, maintenance workers, vendors. Sophia waited. And rickshaw pullers. A moment of silence followed. Then Sophia burst into laughter. Actual laughter. The kind she hadn't experienced in weeks. A rickshaw puller? Richard grinned. Why not? You cannot be serious. I'm completely serious. Sophia shook her head. This may be the craziest idea you've ever had. That's saying a lot. She laughed again despite herself. Richard smiled, pleased to see life returning to her face. Then he explained further. Think about it. Sophia listened. If you worked inside the park disguised as an ordinary employee, nobody would suspect anything. Dad, hear me out. He stood and began pacing. You'd meet ordinary people. Real people. People who aren't trying to impress billionaires. People who have no reason to pretend. The more he spoke, the more Sophia found herself considering the possibility. It still sounded ridiculous, yet strangely fascinating. What exactly are you suggesting? Richard's smile widened. I'm suggesting you become a rickshaw puller. Sophia laughed again. The image alone seemed impossible. Her, the billionaire's daughter, pulling tourists around an amusement park. The thought was absurd. Yet for some reason it also sounded exciting. I wouldn't last a day. That's what makes it interesting. Dad, I'm serious. Sophia stood and walked toward the window. Outside, she could see the massive city skyline stretching endlessly into the distance. For years she had lived surrounded by luxury. Private jets, luxury cars, designer clothing, personal assistants. Maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe she had spent too much time inside a golden cage. Perhaps she didn't really know how ordinary people lived. Perhaps she needed a different perspective. Still, doubts filled her mind. What if someone recognizes me? We'll disguise you. What if the media finds out? We'll be careful. What if I fail? Richard smiled. Then you'll have a funny story to tell your grandchildren someday. Sophia couldn't help smiling. The idea sounded completely insane. Yet it was the first thing in weeks that made her feel curious about the future. For days she thought about it. The proposal lingered in her mind. Whenever she remembered Daniel's betrayal, she found herself thinking about her father's words. People know who you are before they know who you are. Eventually she realized something important. She had nothing left to lose. Her heart was already broken. Her trust was already damaged. Perhaps this unusual adventure could help her heal. Perhaps it could help her discover who she was beyond wealth and privilege. 1 week later, Sophia walked into a private room inside Williams Wonder Park. A team of professional makeup artists waited for her. Richard stood nearby looking far too pleased with himself. Sophia folded her arms. I still can't believe I'm doing this. You'll thank me later. We'll see. For several hours, the makeover continued. Her expensive hairstyles disappeared beneath a simple scarf. Her designer wardrobe was replaced with worn clothing. Special makeup altered her appearance. Nothing dramatic enough to make her unrecognizable under close inspection, but enough to ensure nobody would immediately identify her. When the transformation was complete, Sophia looked into the mirror. She gasped. The woman staring back looked nothing like the billionaire socialite frequently featured in magazines. Instead, she looked like an ordinary young worker trying to earn a living. Even her posture seemed different. Her confidence seemed replaced by humility. Wow, she whispered. Richard stepped beside her. What do you think? Sophia couldn't stop staring. For the first time in her life, Nobody would see a billionaire's daughter. Nobody would see a fortune. Nobody would see an inheritance. They would simply see a woman. Just a woman. Nothing more. Nothing less. And perhaps, for the first time, someone might fall in love with her for the right reasons. A nervous excitement filled her chest. She didn't know it yet, but this decision was about to change her life forever. Somewhere inside the amusement park, a kind-hearted food seller named Ethan was preparing for another ordinary day of work. Neither of them had any idea that fate was quietly preparing to bring their worlds together. And when it did, neither of their lives would ever be the same again. Sophia Williams barely slept the night before her first day at Williams Wonder Park. She tossed and turned in bed as nervous thoughts raced through her mind. What if someone recognized her? What if she accidentally revealed who she was? What if she couldn't handle the work? The more she thought about it, the more ridiculous the entire plan seemed. She was the daughter of one of the richest men in the country. Her hands had never pushed a rickshaw. She had never spent an entire day working outdoors. She had never worried about earning enough money to survive. Yet in a few hours, she would be pretending to be an ordinary worker. For the first time in her life, she would experience a world completely different from the one she had always known. As dawn broke across the city, Sophia stood before her bedroom mirror. Gone were the elegant dresses and expensive jewelry. Instead, she wore faded trousers, worn sneakers, and a simple long-sleeved shirt. A scarf covered most of her carefully styled hair. Special makeup slightly altered her appearance. Looking at herself, she almost didn't recognize the reflection staring back. She looked ordinary, and strangely enough, she liked it. For once, nobody would see a billionaire's daughter. Nobody would see an inheritance. Nobody would see money. They would only see her. A small smile appeared on her face. Perhaps her father's crazy idea wasn't so crazy after all. Downstairs, Richard Williams was already waiting. The billionaire looked unusually excited. "You look perfect," he said. Sophia rolled her eyes. "I look like I haven't paid my bills in 6 months." "Exactly, Dad." Richard laughed. "You'll be fine." "I hope so." He placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Remember, nobody knows who you are." Sophia nodded. That thought comforted her. Today she wouldn't be Sophia Williams. Today she would simply be Sophie. Just Sophie. Nothing more. Nothing less. A short time later, a private vehicle dropped her near a staff entrance of Williams Wonder Park. The moment she stepped out, her heart began pounding. She had visited the park countless times throughout her life. Sometimes as a child. Sometimes as an executive's daughter. Sometimes as a celebrity guest. But today felt completely different. Today she entered through the workers' gate. Nobody greeted her with special treatment. Nobody bowed respectfully. Nobody rushed to assist her. And for some reason, she enjoyed that. A supervisor named Mr. Harris met her near the employee area. Richard had carefully selected a handful of trusted employees who knew about Sophia's disguise. Everyone else believed she was a new worker. "You must be Sophie." Sophia smiled. "That's me. Welcome aboard." Mr. Harris handed her a uniform vest. "Let's get you started." Within 30 minutes, Sophia found herself standing beside a row of colorful rickshaws. She stared at them nervously. The vehicles looked much heavier than she expected. Mr. Harris noticed her concern. "Never pulled one before?" Sophia forced a laugh. "Is it that obvious?" "A little." He demonstrated how to grip the handles, how to steer, how to brake, how to navigate crowded pathways. Sophia listened carefully. The instructions seemed simple enough. At least in theory. The actual experience proved much harder. Her first attempt ended with the rickshaw veering sideways. Her second nearly collided with a trash bin. By the third attempt, she finally managed to move in a straight line. Mr. Harris nodded approvingly. "Not bad." Sophia wiped sweat from her forehead. "I feel like I've run a marathon." "You'll get used to it." She certainly hoped so. The park officially opened at 9 o'clock. Almost immediately, crowds began pouring through the entrance gates. Families, tourists, children, couples. The entire place came alive with excitement. Music played through hidden speakers. Roller coasters roared overhead. Laughter echoed from every direction. Sophia watched in amazement. Although she had visited the park countless times, she had never seen it from a worker's perspective. Now she noticed things she had overlooked before. The cleaners working tirelessly to keep pathways spotless. The maintenance crews ensuring every ride operated safely. The food vendors preparing meals from early morning. Hundreds of people worked behind the scenes to create happiness for guests. It gave her a newfound appreciation for their efforts. Soon her first customers approached. A family of 4. The father smiled. "Can you take us to Adventure Mountain?" Sophia swallowed nervously. Of course. A few moments later, she was pulling her first passengers through the park. The experience was exhausting. Far more exhausting than she expected. Within minutes her arms ached. Her legs burned. Sweat trickled down her forehead. By lunchtime she felt as though every muscle in her body was protesting. For years she had assumed rickshaw pulling was relatively simple. Now she understood how demanding it truly was. Several times she considered giving up. Several times she questioned her father's sanity. Yet she kept going. And surprisingly, she found herself enjoying it. Unlike her old life, this work felt real. There were no board meetings. No business deals. No fake smiles. No people pretending to like her because of her family name. Every interaction felt genuine. Customers thanked her. Children waved at her. Strangers smiled warmly. Nobody cared who her father was. Nobody cared how much money she had. It was refreshing. Around mid-afternoon, Sophia parked her rickshaw beneath a shaded area to rest. Her entire body ached. She had never worked so hard in her life. Nearby, several workers sat together eating lunch. They chatted casually while sharing jokes and stories. Sophia watched quietly. One woman noticed her. "You're new, aren't you?" Sophia nodded. The woman smiled warmly. "I'm Maria. Sophie. Nice to meet you." Soon the others introduced themselves as well. Within minutes Sophia found herself laughing with complete strangers. Something about their friendliness surprised her. These people didn't know she was rich. They weren't trying to impress her. They weren't seeking favors. They simply welcomed her because she was another worker. The realization touched her deeply. For years she had struggled to determine whether people's kindness was genuine. Now she experienced kindness with no hidden motives attached. The feeling was almost overwhelming. After lunch, work resumed. The afternoon sun grew hotter. Crowds became larger. The park grew busier. By evening, Sophia felt utterly exhausted. Her feet hurt. Her shoulders hurt. Even muscles she didn't know existed seemed to hurt. Yet beneath the exhaustion was something unexpected. Happiness. Real happiness. For the first time in months, she hadn't spent the entire day thinking about Daniel. She hadn't replayed his betrayal. She hadn't cried. She hadn't felt sorry for herself. Instead, she had focused on living, on working, on experiencing something new. As the park slowly approached closing time, Sophia wandered through one of the quieter sections. The delicious smell of food drifted through the air. Only then did she realize how hungry she was. She hadn't eaten much all day. Her stomach growled loudly. Following the aroma, she found herself approaching a small food stall. The stall wasn't particularly fancy. Compared to the larger restaurants inside the park, it seemed modest. Yet something about it felt inviting. Colorful lights decorated the roof. Customers lined up patiently. Most importantly, the food smelled incredible. Sophia's stomach growled again. Behind the counter stood a young man. He appeared to be around her age. Tall, handsome, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile. As he served customers, Sophia noticed how politely he treated everyone. He joked with children, thanked every customer. Even elderly visitors seemed to leave smiling. There was something genuinely kind about him. Sophia found herself watching longer than intended. Eventually the crowd began to thin. The young man wiped his hands and glanced toward her. Their eyes met briefly. Sophia quickly looked away. For some reason, her cheeks felt warm. She told herself it was simply exhaustion. Nothing more. After all, she didn't even know his name. The young man returned to his work while Sophia slowly continued walking. Neither of them realized it yet. Neither of them knew that fate had just quietly introduced them for the very first time. The billionaire's daughter disguised as a poor rickshaw puller, and the hard-working food seller with the kind smile. Their worlds were completely different, yet destiny had already begun bringing them together. And very soon, a simple act of kindness would change both of their lives forever. Sophia woke up the next morning feeling as though she had been hit by a truck. Every muscle in her body ached. She groaned as she tried to sit up in bed. Her arms felt heavy. Her legs felt weak. Even her shoulders complained when she moved. For a moment she wondered how people did physical labor every single day. Then she remembered the workers she had met at the amusement park. Many of them worked long hours 6 days a week. Some worked even harder than she did. Yet they still laughed. They still smiled. They still showed kindness to one another. The realization humbled her. For years she had lived in comfort without fully understanding the sacrifices ordinary people made simply to earn a living. Now she was beginning to see life through a completely different lens. After a quick breakfast, Sophia transformed into Sophie once again. The makeup artists had taught her how to maintain the disguise herself. Soon the elegant billionaire's daughter disappeared, replaced by a hard-working park employee. When she arrived at William's Wonder Park, she was surprised by how excited she felt. Only a few days earlier she had been drowning in heartbreak. Now she found herself looking forward to work. More specifically, she found herself thinking about a certain food stall, and the handsome man who owned it. The thought made her smile. She immediately shook her head. "Stop it, Sophia." She barely knew him. She didn't even know his name. Still, she couldn't deny that there was something about him that lingered in her thoughts. Something genuine. Something warm. As the day progressed, Sophia focused on her work. She transported families around the park, helped elderly guests reach various attractions, answered questions from visitors. The work remained exhausting, but she was slowly improving. By afternoon, she could maneuver the rickshaw much more confidently. Mr. Harris even complimented her. "You're getting good at this." Sophia laughed. "Let's not get carried away." "No, really. Most new workers struggle longer." His praise made her feel surprisingly proud. For once, she had accomplished something without her father's influence. Nobody had handed her success. Nobody had opened doors for her. She was earning respect through effort. The feeling was incredibly satisfying. Hours passed quickly. The afternoon sun grew hotter. The park became crowded. Sophia worked nonstop. By the time evening approached, she was completely exhausted. More importantly, she was starving. Her breakfast felt like a distant memory. She had been so busy that she skipped lunch entirely. Her stomach growled loudly as she parked her rickshaw near a shaded pathway. The delicious aroma of grilled food drifted through the air. Instantly, she knew where it was coming from. The food stall. Without even realizing it, her feet carried her in that direction. As she approached, she noticed a long line of customers waiting to be served. The handsome food seller worked efficiently behind the counter. Despite the crowd, he greeted every customer with a smile. He joked with children. He thanked everyone politely. He treated each person with patience and respect. Sophia found herself admiring that. Many successful people became arrogant. This man seemed different. There was a sincerity about him that felt refreshing. She joined the end of the line and waited. Unfortunately, after several minutes, she remembered something important. She reached into her pocket. Empty. Her heart sank. She checked again. Still empty. In her rush that morning, she had forgotten her wallet. As Sophie, she only carried a small amount of cash. Today she had left even that behind. Embarrassment washed over her. She quietly stepped out of line. The last thing she wanted was to reach the counter and discover she couldn't pay. Her stomach protested immediately. The smell of food seemed even more tempting now. She sat on a nearby bench and tried to ignore her hunger. Unfortunately, hunger was difficult to ignore, especially after spending the entire day pulling a rickshaw. Minutes passed. The crowd gradually disappeared. Most customers returned to enjoying the park. Sophia remained seated, staring at the ground. She was so distracted that she didn't notice someone approaching. A shadow fell across her. Long day. She looked up. The food seller stood before her. Up close, he was even more handsome than she remembered. His friendly eyes held genuine concern. Sophia quickly sat up. A little, he said with a grin. You look like you fought a lion. She laughed despite herself. That's encouraging. I'm serious. He pointed toward her tired expression. I've seen exhausted people before. Sophia smiled. Occupational hazard. You work hard. The simple statement surprised her. Most people in her old life noticed her clothes, appearance, or family name. This man noticed her effort. For some reason, that meant a lot. Before she could respond, her stomach growled loudly. Very loudly. The sound was impossible to miss. Sophia wanted the ground to swallow her whole. The food seller burst out laughing. Her cheeks turned red. Please pretend that didn't happen. I'm afraid that's impossible. Wonderful. He smiled warmly. Hungry. She hesitated. A little. He repeated her earlier words. This time they both laughed. The conversation felt natural, easy, comfortable. Then his expression softened. Have you eaten today? Sophia looked away. Not really. His eyebrows rose. Not really. I skipped lunch. And breakfast. She hesitated. His answer came immediately. You skipped breakfast too. Sophia sighed. Maybe. The food seller shook his head. That's not good. He turned and walked back toward his stall. Sophia watched curiously. A few moments later, he returned carrying a plate filled with food. The aroma alone made her mouth water. Grilled chicken, rice, fresh vegetables. Everything looked delicious. He held it out to her. Here. Sophia blinked. What? Food. I can see that. Then take it. Her eyes widened. I can't. Why not? Because I don't have any money. The young man shrugged. Good thing I'm not charging. Sophia stared at him. For several moments she couldn't speak. In her old world, people constantly wanted something. A business connection, a favor, an investment, access to her father's influence. Nothing was ever truly free. Yet this complete stranger was offering her a meal simply because she looked hungry. No expectations, no hidden motives, just kindness, pure and simple. I can't accept that. Why? Because. She struggled to find an answer. Honestly, she wasn't used to receiving kindness without conditions. The food seller sat beside her. My mother taught me something when I was young. Sophia listened. If you can help someone, help them. He nodded toward the plate. Today, helping you happens to involve food. A strange lump formed in Sophia's throat. She wasn't emotional because of the meal. She was emotional because of what it represented. Genuine kindness. The kind she had been searching for her entire life. Slowly, she accepted the plate. Thank you. His smile widened. You're welcome. Sophia took her first bite. The food was amazing. No, amazing wasn't a strong enough word. It was incredible. Her eyes widened. The food seller laughed. That good. It's perfect. I'll take that as a compliment. You should. For the next few minutes, Sophia ate while the young man sat nearby. The conversation flowed effortlessly. They discussed work, the amusement park, funny customer stories, simple everyday topics. Nothing felt forced. Nothing felt fake. When Sophia finished eating, she realized something shocking. She had laughed more during the last 30 minutes than she had in the entire month after Daniel's betrayal. The realization startled her, perhaps because it felt so good. As the sun began setting, colorful lights illuminated the amusement park. Families continued enjoying rides. Music filled the air. For a moment, everything felt peaceful. Sophia glanced toward the young man. You never told me your name. He smiled. Ethan. She repeated it quietly. Ethan. For some reason, she liked how it sounded. And you're Sophie. That's right. Ethan stood. Well, Sophie, try not to skip meals anymore. She laughed. I'll do my best. Good. He started walking back toward his stall. Then he paused. And if you ever forget your money again, don't starve yourself. Sophia smiled. I'll remember that. As Ethan disappeared into the crowd, she remained seated on the bench. A warm feeling settled in her chest. It wasn't love. Not yet. It was something much simpler. Hope. For the first time in a very long time, she felt hopeful. Hopeful that good people still existed. Hopeful that kindness was real. Hopeful that perhaps not every person in the world was chasing money. As she watched Ethan serving customers with the same warm smile he had shown her, she couldn't stop smiling. What Sophia didn't realize was that Ethan had been equally affected by their meeting. As he worked, he occasionally glanced toward the pathway where she had been sitting. There was something different about Sophie, something he couldn't quite explain. She seemed kind, honest, genuine, and for reasons he didn't understand, he found himself hoping she would come back tomorrow. Meanwhile, Sophia walked home beneath the glowing lights of the amusement park. The food in her stomach had eased her hunger. But Ethan's kindness had nourished something far more important. A wounded heart that had almost forgotten how to trust. And without realizing it, both of them were already looking forward to seeing each other again. The next morning, Sophia woke up with a smile on her face. The moment she opened her eyes, she knew exactly why. Ethan. The memory of their conversation replayed in her mind. His warm smile, his kindness, the way he had given her food without expecting anything in return. For the first time since Daniel's betrayal, she felt genuinely excited about something. As she prepared for work, she caught herself humming softly. Then she immediately stopped. "This is ridiculous," she muttered. She barely knew the man. Yet somehow, the thought of seeing him again made her heart feel lighter. Downstairs, Richard Williams noticed the change immediately. His daughter hadn't smiled this much in weeks. "You seem happier today." Sophia quickly looked away. "I'm fine." Richard narrowed his eyes suspiciously. "Interesting." "What?" "Nothing, Dad." Richard chuckled. "I haven't seen you smile like that since before Daniel." Sophia felt her cheeks warm. "Don't start." "Start what?" She grabbed her bag. "I'm leaving." Richard laughed as she hurried toward the door. As soon as she left, the billionaire smiled knowingly. Whatever was happening inside that amusement park was clearly working. Very well. By the time Sophia arrived at Williams Wonder Park, the morning crowd had already begun arriving. Children raced excitedly toward the rides. Parents followed behind carrying bags and cameras. The entire park buzzed with energy. Sophia climbed into her rickshaw and began working. Yet despite her efforts to focus, she kept glancing toward Ethan's food stall. Not that she was counting, but she may have looked 7 times in the first hour, maybe 8. Around noon, she finally saw him. Ethan was arranging supplies behind the counter. As though sensing her gaze, he looked up. Their eyes met. Immediately, he smiled and waved. Sophia's heart performed an embarrassing little flip. She waved back. For the rest of the afternoon, she found herself smiling for no reason. Or at least no reason she wanted to admit. A few hours later, Sophia parked her rickshaw during her lunch break. As she approached Ethan's stall, he grinned. "I was beginning to think you weren't coming." Sophia tried to appear casual. "Why would you think that?" He shrugged. "You usually appear around lunchtime looking hungry." She laughed. "That's rude." "It's accurate. There's a difference." Ethan handed her a bottle of water. "This one's free." Sophia accepted it. "Thank you." "No problem." Unlike the previous day, she had remembered her money. She purchased lunch and sat at a nearby table. To her surprise, Ethan carried his own food over and sat across from her. For a moment, neither spoke. The situation felt strangely comfortable. Eventually, Ethan broke the silence. "So tell me about yourself." Sophia nearly choked on her drink. Dangerous question. Very dangerous. She couldn't exactly say, "Hello, I'm Sophia Williams. My father owns this entire park." Instead, She carefully chose her words. There's not much to tell. I doubt that. Why? Everybody has a story. Sophia smiled. What about yours? Ethan leaned back. Trying to change the subject? Maybe. He laughed. Fair enough. For the next few minutes, Ethan shared stories about growing up. He explained how he had lost both parents when he was young. Sophia's expression softened immediately. I'm sorry. Ethan nodded. It was difficult. He stared into the distance briefly. There were times I wasn't sure how I'd survive. Sophia listened carefully. The pain in his voice felt real. Unlike many wealthy people she knew, Ethan had experienced genuine hardship. Yet he carried no bitterness, no resentment, only determination. My uncle helped raise me, Ethan continued. He wasn't rich, but he did everything he could. What happened? He taught me how to cook. Sophia smiled. Clearly he did a good job. Ethan laughed. I'll tell him you said that. He still cooks. Every Sunday. Sophia found herself enjoying every minute of the conversation. Unlike many men she had dated, Ethan never bragged. He never tried to impress her. He simply spoke honestly, and somehow honesty was far more attractive. Over the following weeks, a routine developed. Every morning, Sophia worked her shift. Every afternoon, she found an excuse to pass by Ethan's stall. Every evening, they spent time talking. At first, their conversations lasted only a few minutes, then 15 minutes, then 30. Before long, they could talk for hours. Sometimes they discussed funny customers. Sometimes they talked about childhood memories. Sometimes they shared dreams for the future. The more Sophia learned about Ethan, the more she admired him. He worked incredibly hard. He treated everyone with respect. He never complained about life's difficulties. Most importantly, he possessed something she rarely encountered: integrity. The quality Daniel had pretended to possess. The quality Ethan genuinely had. One evening after closing time, they sat together near a fountain inside the park. The crowds had disappeared. Only a handful of workers remained. Colorful lights reflected beautifully across the water. Sophia smiled. This place looks different at night. Ethan nodded. I think it's prettier. Me too. For a moment, comfortable silence settled between them. Then Ethan spoke. Can I ask you something? Sophia instantly became nervous. Depends. Why did you become a rickshaw puller? Her heart nearly stopped. Of all the questions, she forced a smile. Why do you ask? You don't seem like everyone else. Sophia laughed nervously. Everyone says that. No, seriously. Ethan looked thoughtful. You speak differently. Sophia's stomach tightened. You think I talk strangely? Not strangely. He shook his head. Educated. Sophia relaxed slightly. That explanation was safer. I guess I read a lot. That explains it. Fortunately, Ethan didn't press further. Still, the conversation reminded Sophia how dangerous her secret remained. Every day she spent with Ethan increased the risk of discovery. Yet somehow she couldn't stay away. Weeks turned into months. Soon the workers inside the park began noticing the friendship. Maria, one of the employees Sophia had met during her first week, smiled knowingly one afternoon. So, Sophia frowned. So what? Maria pointed toward Ethan's stall. You've been spending a lot of time over there. Sophia nearly dropped the drink she was holding. We're friends. Maria laughed. Of course. We are. If you say so. Sophia rolled her eyes. Yet deep down, she couldn't deny the truth. Something was changing. Something important. The realization became impossible to ignore one rainy evening. The weather had driven most visitors indoors. Business was slow throughout the park. Sophia found herself sitting inside Ethan's stall while rain tapped softly against the roof. The two of them spent nearly 2 hours talking. About everything. And nothing. At one point, Ethan made a terrible joke. Sophia laughed so hard that tears filled her eyes. When she finally stopped laughing, she noticed Ethan staring at her. Not in a creepy way. Not awkwardly. Just quietly. His expression seemed different. Softer. Warmer. For several seconds, neither spoke. The air suddenly felt charged with something neither wanted to name. Then another customer approached the stall. The moment disappeared. Yet Sophia couldn't stop thinking about it afterward. That night, she lay awake in bed staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts revolved around Ethan. His smile, his laugh, his kindness, the way he genuinely listened whenever she spoke. Eventually she sat up. No, she shook her head. This isn't happening. But deep down, she already knew it was. She was falling for him. Slowly, steadily, completely. The realization terrified her. The last time she had trusted someone, her heart had been shattered. What if she was making another mistake? What if Ethan turned out to be like Daniel? The possibility frightened her. Yet every interaction told her otherwise. Ethan didn't know who she was. He didn't know about the billions. He didn't know about the inheritance. He wasn't interested in money. He simply enjoyed spending time with Sophie. And perhaps that was why her feelings continued growing stronger each day. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself facing the same struggle. He looked forward to seeing Sophia every morning. He noticed when she was absent. He smiled whenever she appeared. Somehow, without realizing it, she had become the best part of his day. One evening after closing, Ethan watched Sophia walking toward the employee exit. A smile appeared on his face. His assistant noticed immediately. "You like her, don't you?" Ethan nearly choked. "What? Sophie?" Ethan laughed nervously. "Don't be ridiculous." The assistant raised an eyebrow. "You literally smile every time she walks by." Ethan glanced toward Sophia again. His smile returned automatically. The assistant laughed. "Case closed." Ethan shook his head. But as he watched Sophia disappear into the distance, he couldn't deny the truth any longer. Something special was happening. Neither of them knew where it would lead. Neither of them knew how complicated things would eventually become. For now, they were simply two people enjoying each other's company. Two hearts slowly healing. Two souls finding comfort in an unexpected friendship. And with every conversation, every laugh, and every shared moment, friendship was quietly transforming into something much deeper. Something neither of them would be able to resist for much longer. The weeks following Sophia and Ethan's growing friendship passed like a beautiful dream. Every day seemed brighter than the one before. For Sophia, the amusement park was no longer simply a place where she worked as a disguised rickshaw puller. It had become the place where she looked forward to seeing Ethan. The place where her heart felt at peace. The place where she could forget she was Sophia Williams, billionaire heiress. When she was with Ethan, she wasn't the daughter of a wealthy businessman. She wasn't someone carrying the burden of a famous family name. She was simply Sophie. And somehow, Ethan made her feel more like herself than anyone else ever had. Every morning she found herself wondering whether she would see him. Every afternoon she found reasons to visit his food stall. Every evening she left the park smiling. Even Richard noticed the dramatic change. One evening, Sophia entered the mansion practically glowing with happiness. Richard looked up from his newspaper. Well, Sophia paused. "What? You've smiled at least 12 times since walking through the door." She laughed. "You counted. I own businesses. Counting is what I do." Sophia rolled her eyes. Richard studied her carefully. "He's making you happy." Sophia nearly dropped her handbag. "Dad." "What? You don't even know who you're talking about." Richard grinned. "I don't have to." Sophia hurried upstairs before he could tease her further. But she couldn't stop smiling. Because deep down, she knew her father was right. Ethan was making her happy. Very happy. And that realization both excited and frightened her. The following day, Sophia arrived at the park earlier than usual. The morning air felt cool and refreshing. Workers prepared attractions before guests arrived. Vendors organized supplies. Maintenance crews performed safety checks. Everything seemed peaceful. As she walked toward her rickshaw station, she noticed Ethan carrying several heavy boxes toward his food stall. Without thinking, she hurried over. "Need help?" Ethan turned and smiled. "Morning, Sophie." Her heart immediately performed its now familiar little dance. "Morning." He glanced at the boxes. You don't have to help. Maybe I want to. Ethan laughed. Then I won't argue. Together they carried the supplies. The task wasn't particularly difficult, but Sophia enjoyed every second of it. Even simple moments felt special when she was with him. After they finished, Ethan handed her a bottle of water. Thank you. For helping. For existing. The words slipped out before he could stop himself. Both of them froze. For a moment neither spoke. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. That came out weird. Sophia laughed softly. A little. But secretly his words made her heart flutter. Because she knew exactly what he meant. And perhaps because she felt the same way. As summer approached, the amusement park became busier than ever. Crowds filled every corner. Children ran excitedly between attractions. Families waited in long lines. The entire place buzzed with energy. Despite the increased workload, Sophia loved every minute. Mostly because Ethan was always nearby. One afternoon, a little girl climbed into Sophia's rickshaw. She couldn't have been older than 7. The child stared at Sophia for several moments. Then she smiled. You look happy. Sophia blinked. What? The little girl nodded confidently. My mommy says people who smile a lot are happy. Sophia laughed. Is that so? Yep. The child pointed toward Ethan's stall in the distance. You smile when you look over there. Sophia nearly choked. The girl's mother looked embarrassed. I'm so sorry. But Sophia couldn't stop laughing. Even children had begun noticing. The truth was becoming impossible to hide. She was falling in love. Slowly, completely, and deeply. One evening, after the park closed, Sophia and Ethan sat together near the giant Ferris wheel. The colorful lights illuminated the night sky. The sounds of the city seemed distant. For a while they simply enjoyed each other's company. Then Ethan spoke quietly. Can I tell you something? Sophia looked at him. Of course. Ethan stared toward the Ferris wheel. When I was younger, I used to think happiness was something big. What do you mean? I thought I'd be happy if I became rich. Sophia listened carefully. Or successful. He shrugged. Or famous. What changed? A smile appeared on his face. Life. Sophia laughed softly. That's vague. It is. Ethan nodded. But somewhere along the way, I realized happiness isn't always big. He turned toward her. Sometimes it's small. His eyes held hers. Sometimes it's sharing lunch with someone. Sophia's pulse quickened. Or talking after work. His voice grew softer. Or seeing a familiar face at the start of a difficult day. The air between them seemed to change. Everything suddenly felt more intense. More meaningful. Sophia struggled to look away. Yet she couldn't. Not when he was looking at her like that. Not when her heart was racing. Not when every instinct told her that this moment mattered. Neither spoke for several seconds. Neither wanted to break whatever was happening. Finally Ethan smiled. You know something? What? You've become my favorite part of this park. Sophia felt her breath catch. The words hit her harder than she expected. Not because they were dramatic. Not because they were poetic. But because they were sincere. She could hear the honesty in his voice. And after everything she had endured, honesty meant everything. A lump formed in her throat. You've become my favorite part too. The confession escaped before she could stop it. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. Then he smiled. A real smile. The kind that reached his eyes. The kind that made Sophia's heart melt. That night Sophia couldn't sleep. She lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her mind replayed every conversation. Every smile. Every laugh. Every shared moment. The truth was obvious now. She loved him. Not because he was handsome. Not because he was charming. Not because he made her laugh. Though all those things were true. She loved him because he was kind. Because he was genuine. Because he treated people with respect. Because he expected nothing from her. Most importantly, she loved him because he had helped her believe in people again. After Daniel's betrayal, Sophia had almost given up on love. Ethan had changed that, without even trying, without even knowing. He had healed pieces of her heart she thought were broken forever. Yet alongside those feelings came fear. The secret. Her secret. Every day she delayed telling him made her feel guilty. What would happen when he learned the truth? Would he understand? Or would he feel betrayed? The thought terrified her. But for now she pushed those worries aside. Because she wanted to enjoy the happiness she had found. Even if only for a little while. Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone in his apartment. For once, he wasn't thinking about work. He wasn't thinking about supplies, or bills, or business plans. He was thinking about Sophie, the woman who somehow made ordinary days extraordinary. The woman who always listened. The woman who laughed at his terrible jokes. The woman whose smile could brighten his entire day. His friend had noticed immediately. "You love her," Ethan groaned. "Not you too. I'm serious." "So am I." His friend laughed. "You talk about her constantly." "I do not." "You absolutely do." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, because he couldn't. His friend was right. Every conversation somehow led back to Sophie. Every thought seemed connected to her. Eventually, Ethan leaned back and smiled. Maybe it was pointless denying it. Maybe he was in love. Actually, there was no maybe about it. He was, completely, hopelessly, and wonderfully. For the first time in years, the future looked brighter. For the first time in years, he found himself imagining a life shared with someone else. A life that included Sophie. Neither Ethan nor Sophia knew what challenges awaited them. Neither knew that a secret still stood between them. But one thing was certain. The friendship that had begun with a free meal was no longer just friendship. It had become something deeper, something stronger, something neither of them could control. As the lights of William's Wonder Park glowed beneath the stars, two hearts were quietly moving toward each other. And very soon, the feelings they had tried to hide would become impossible to deny. By the time autumn arrived, Sophia and Ethan had become inseparable. Every worker in William's Wonder Park knew it. Maria knew it. Mr. Harris knew it. Even visitors who saw them together could sense the connection between them. Whenever Sophia walked into the park, Ethan's face immediately brightened. Whenever Ethan appeared in the distance, Sophia couldn't hide her smile. Neither of them had officially defined their relationship. Neither had confessed their deepest feelings. Yet everyone around them could see what they could no longer deny. They were in love. The only people pretending not to notice were Sophia and Ethan themselves. And even that pretense was becoming increasingly difficult. One afternoon, Sophia was helping a family near the Ferris wheel when she accidentally twisted her ankle. The pain wasn't severe, but it was enough to make her stumble. Immediately, Ethan abandoned his food stall and hurried across the pathway. "Sophie!" Sophia looked up in surprise. Within seconds, he was kneeling beside her. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." Several nearby workers exchanged knowing smiles. Sophia felt embarrassed. "Ethan, people are staring." "I don't care." His answer came so quickly that it made her heart skip a beat. Gently, he helped her stand. "Can you walk?" "I think so." "Think so isn't good enough." Before she could protest, Ethan supported her as they slowly walked toward a nearby bench. The entire time his hand remained on hers. The simple touch sent warmth racing through her body. Once she sat down, Ethan inspected her ankle. Thankfully, it wasn't serious. Still, his concern touched her deeply. "You worry too much." Ethan looked up. "And you don't worry enough." Sophia laughed. For a moment, neither moved. Neither released the other's hand. The world around them seemed to fade. The crowd, the rides, the music, everything disappeared, leaving only the two of them. Eventually a passing child pointed at them and loudly asked, "Mommy, are they boyfriend and girlfriend?" The moment shattered instantly. Sophia burst into laughter. Ethan nearly fell off the bench. The embarrassed mother hurried away while apologizing. Yet neither Sophia nor Ethan could stop smiling. Because deep down, both of them had wondered the same thing. That evening, Sophia returned home feeling happier than she had in years. Richard was sitting in his study reviewing documents when she entered. The billionaire glanced up. One look at his daughter's face told him everything. "You're in love." Sophia froze. "Dad." "What? You can't just say things like that." Richard laughed. "Why not?" "Because it's embarrassing." His amusement only increased. "I haven't seen you this happy since you were a child." Sophia sat down quietly. The smile slowly faded from her face. Richard immediately noticed. "What's wrong?" She hesitated. Then she sighed. "My secret." The billionaire's expression softened. "Ethan?" Sophia nodded. "I'm scared." "Of what?" "What happens when he finds out who I really am?" Richard remained silent. It was a fair concern. Perhaps the biggest concern. Every day that passed made the truth harder to reveal. Yet neither of them had found the right moment. "What if he hates me?" "He won't." "You don't know that." Richard leaned forward. "Maybe not." Sophia looked away. "But I know this." "What?" "If he loves you, he'll understand." Sophia wanted to believe him. She truly did. Yet fear continued whispering in her mind. Fear of losing Ethan. Fear of watching another relationship collapse. Fear of having her heart broken all over again. Little did she know, events were already moving toward a moment neither of them could avoid. The following week brought unexpected rain. Dark clouds covered the sky for most of the day. Despite the weather, the amusement park remained open. Guests carried umbrellas while workers continued their duties. By evening, the rain became heavier. Most visitors headed home early. The pathways gradually emptied. Sophia finished her shift just before closing. As she stepped outside, she frowned. Rain poured from the sky. Her umbrella was nowhere to be found. "Perfect. Need help?" She turned. Ethan stood behind her holding a large umbrella. Sophia smiled immediately. "Maybe." "Good answer." He opened the umbrella. "Come on." Together they began walking toward the employee exit. The rain created a peaceful atmosphere. Water glistened beneath colorful park lights. The usual noise of crowds had disappeared. For once, the amusement park felt quiet, almost magical. Sophia glanced at Ethan. He seemed unusually thoughtful. "Everything okay?" Ethan smiled. "Yeah." "You sure?" "Just thinking." "Dangerous activity." He laughed. "Probably." They continued walking. For several minutes neither spoke. Yet the silence felt comfortable. Not awkward, just peaceful. The kind of silence shared by people who genuinely enjoyed each other's company. Eventually they reached a small covered shelter near the park entrance. The rain intensified dramatically. Sheets of water poured from the sky. "We're not getting through that anytime soon," Ethan said. Sophia nodded. "Looks like we're stuck." Neither seemed particularly upset by the situation. They sat on a nearby bench and watched the storm. Minutes passed, then more minutes. The conversation drifted naturally from one topic to another. Dreams, childhood memories, favorite books, favorite foods, the future. At some point, Sophia realized she was staring at Ethan. And Ethan was staring at her. Neither looked away. Something had changed. Something important. The air felt different, charged, electric. Sophia's heart began beating faster. Ethan seemed equally nervous. For the first time since meeting him, she saw uncertainty in his eyes, as though he was debating something internally. Finally, he took a deep breath. "Sophie." The way he said her name immediately captured her attention. "Yeah." Ethan looked down briefly, then back at her. "I need to tell you something." Sophia's pulse quickened. Every instinct told her she already knew what was coming. Yet hearing it felt terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Ethan swallowed nervously. "I've never been very good at this." She smiled softly. "At what?" His laugh was nervous. "Talking about feelings." Sophia's heart pounded. Rain continued falling around them. The world seemed to disappear, leaving only this moment, only this conversation, only them. Ethan looked directly into her eyes, and suddenly everything became clear. "I think about you all the time." Sophia's breath caught. "I look forward to seeing you every day." My mornings are better when you're around. Her eyes began filling with tears, not tears of sadness, tears of happiness, because every word mirrored her own feelings. Ethan continued, when you're absent, I notice. When you're happy, I feel happy. When you're sad, I worry. His voice softened. And honestly, he paused. The next words seemed difficult, yet he forced himself to say them. I think I'm in love with you. The confession hung between them. For a moment neither moved, neither spoke. Sophia felt tears sliding down her cheeks, not because she was upset, but because she had waited so long to hear those words from someone she trusted. Someone genuine, someone real. The man sitting before her wasn't after wealth. He wasn't chasing power. He wasn't pursuing an inheritance. He simply loved her, or at least the version of her he knew, and that realization overwhelmed her. Ethan immediately looked concerned. Oh no! Sophia laughed through her tears. What? I made you cry. She shook her head. No. Then why are you crying? A smile spread across her face. Because I love you too. The words escaped before fear could stop them. Ethan stared at her. Shock filled his expression. Then happiness. Pure happiness. The kind that couldn't be faked. The kind that transformed his entire face. For several moments neither spoke. Neither needed to. Everything had already been said. Slowly, Ethan reached up and brushed a strand of hair away from her face. The gesture was gentle, tender. His hand lingered briefly. Sophia's heart raced. Neither looked away. The distance between them suddenly felt very small. Very small indeed. Ethan leaned closer. Not quickly, not forcefully, giving her every opportunity to move away. She didn't. Instead, she moved closer too. Their foreheads nearly touched. The rain continued falling around them. Softly, steadily, almost as if the world itself had paused to witness the moment. Then finally their lips met. The kiss was gentle, sweet, filled with emotion. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. It was simply two people expressing feelings they had carried for months. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling. Both were laughing softly. Neither could quite believe what had happened. Sophia rested her head against Ethan's shoulder. For the first time in years, she felt completely safe, completely loved, completely happy. Yet somewhere deep inside, a small voice reminded her of the truth she still hadn't revealed. The secret she continued hiding. Sophia Williams, billionaire's daughter, heir to one of the largest fortunes in the country. As she sat beside Ethan, enjoying the happiest moment of her life, she silently promised herself something. Soon, very soon, she would tell him everything, because she loved him too much to keep lying. Unfortunately, fate had other plans, and the truth would be revealed much sooner than either of them expected. The days following their first kiss were the happiest Sophia had experienced in years. Every morning she woke up smiling. Every evening she went to bed thinking about Ethan. Life suddenly felt brighter. The pain Daniel had caused was becoming a distant memory. For the first time in a long time, Sophia allowed herself to imagine a future with someone. A future that included Ethan. Yet beneath her happiness, a growing sense of guilt lingered. The secret. Her secret. Every day she delayed telling Ethan the truth made her feel worse. She loved him, and because she loved him, she hated lying to him. Several times she tried to tell him. Several times she almost confessed. But fear always stopped her. What if he felt betrayed? What if he walked away? What if the truth destroyed everything they had built? The thought terrified her. Unfortunately, fate wasn't interested in waiting for the perfect moment. The truth was coming, and it was coming fast. One sunny afternoon, Williams Wonder Park was busier than ever. School holidays had begun. Families filled every corner of the park. Children laughed as they raced between attractions. Music echoed from loudspeakers. Workers hurried everywhere. The entire park buzzed with excitement. Sophia had just finished her shift for the day. As usual, she made her way toward Ethan's food stall. The moment Ethan spotted her, he smiled. That smile still made her heart flutter. "There's my favorite customer." Sophia laughed. Customer. Fine. He grinned. My favorite person. Her cheeks warmed immediately. You realize you're becoming very smooth. I'm learning. From who? You. Sophia rolled her eyes. Ethan laughed and handed her a cold drink. They sat together at one of the nearby outdoor tables. For a while they talked about ordinary things. Funny customers. Work. Future plans. The conversation flowed naturally as always. Neither of them noticed a woman entering the park several hundred feet away. A woman carrying a microphone. A camera crew followed close behind. Her name was Vanessa Grant, one of the most recognized entertainment reporters in the country. And unfortunately for Sophia, Vanessa knew exactly who she was. Vanessa had been assigned to cover a story about the success of Williams Wonder Park. She had interviewed Richard Williams several times over the years. She had also met Sophia at charity galas, corporate events, and social functions. As Vanessa walked through the crowded park, she suddenly froze. Her eyes narrowed. That couldn't be right. She looked again. The young woman sitting beside a food stall looked familiar. Very familiar. Vanessa took several steps closer. Then her eyes widened. Oh my goodness! Her cameraman frowned. What? Vanessa pointed. That's Sophia Williams. The cameraman stared. The billionaire's daughter? Yes. Confusion crossed his face. What is she doing dressed like that? Vanessa didn't know, but she intended to find out. Immediately, excitement surged through her. This could be a massive story. A billionaire heiress disguised as a park worker? The public would be fascinated. Without hesitation, Vanessa hurried toward the table. Meanwhile, Sophia was laughing at one of Ethan's jokes. She felt happier than ever. Then she heard a familiar voice. Sophia Williams? The smile instantly vanished from her face. Her blood ran cold. Slowly, she turned. The moment she saw Vanessa, panic exploded inside her. No, 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 not here. Not now. Not in front of Ethan. Vanessa's eyes sparkled with excitement. It is you. Sophia stood immediately. Vanessa! The reporter barely let her speak. What are you doing here? Why are you dressed like a worker? Is this some kind of social experiment? The cameraman moved closer. The camera pointed directly at her. Within seconds, nearby visitors began noticing the commotion. People started gathering. More people stopped walking. More people stared. The crowd grew rapidly. Sophia's heart pounded. This was exactly what she had feared. Exactly what she had tried to avoid. She glanced toward Ethan. His expression was filled with confusion. What's going on? He asked. Sophia opened her mouth. But before she could answer, Vanessa spoke again. Is it true you've been working here undercover? The crowd gasped. Several people immediately recognized the name. Wait! Did she say Sophia Williams? The billionaire's daughter? No way. More people gathered. Phones appeared. Pictures were taken. Videos were recorded. The situation spiraled out of control almost instantly. Sophia felt panic tightening around her chest. Everything was happening too fast. Far too fast. Then she heard Ethan's voice. Soft. Confused. Almost disbelieving. Sophia Williams? The way he said her name broke her heart. Because she knew exactly what he was thinking. The truth had arrived. And not in the way she wanted. Fortunately, Richard Williams had anticipated emergencies. Several security guards positioned throughout the park had secretly monitored Sophia's activities for months. The moment they noticed the crowd forming, they acted immediately. Within seconds, a team of guards rushed toward the scene. Make way. Please step back. The crowd protested. Questions flew from every direction. Vanessa continued attempting to interview Sophia. Miss Williams, how long have you been disguised? Why are you pretending to be a worker? Sophia felt overwhelmed. All she wanted was to explain things to Ethan. But there was no opportunity. No privacy. No chance. The guards quickly formed a protective barrier around her. One of them leaned close. We need to leave now. Sophia looked desperately toward Ethan. He remained frozen beside the table. Shock filled his face. Confusion filled his eyes. Their gazes locked. Sophia could practically see the hurt beginning to form. Ethan. Before she could reach him, the guards escorted her away. The crowd followed. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Visitors whispered excitedly. Meanwhile, Ethan remained standing exactly where she had left him. Unable to move. Unable to think. Unable to process what had just happened. Several minutes later, Sophia sat inside a private security office. Her hands trembled. Her heart still raced. The disguise. The secret. Everything was gone. Months of effort had disappeared within minutes. A knock sounded on the door. Richard entered. The moment he saw his daughter's face, he knew something was wrong. Very wrong. "Are you okay?" Sophia looked up. Tears filled her eyes. "Dad." Richard sat beside her. "What happened?" Sophia wiped her face. Ethan found out. The billionaire side. He had feared this day might come. Just not like this. Not publicly. Not through reporters. Not in front of hundreds of strangers. "Did you explain?" Sophia shook her head. There wasn't time. Her voice broke. He looked so hurt. Richard placed an arm around her shoulders. "We'll fix this." But Sophia wasn't sure. For the first time since meeting Ethan, genuine fear filled her heart. Fear that she had lost him forever. Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone inside his food stall. Hours had passed. The park had closed. Workers had gone home. Yet he remained there, staring into nothing, trying to understand what had happened. His entire world felt upside down. Sophia, or rather Sophie, the woman he loved, the woman he trusted, the woman who claimed to be an ordinary rickshaw puller, was actually one of the richest women in the country. He remembered every conversation, every story, every shared moment. Had any of it been real, or had he simply been part of some bizarre game? The thought hurt, far more than he wanted to admit. His assistant eventually approached. "You should go home." Ethan nodded absently, yet he didn't move, because home wouldn't solve anything. Nothing would. Not tonight. That evening Sophia called him. No answer. She called again. Still nothing. Again. Nothing. Finally she sent a message. "Please let me explain." No reply. A few minutes later she sent another. Everything wasn't what it looked like. Nothing. Hours passed. Silence. Sophia sat on her bed staring at her phone. The loneliness felt unbearable. Every minute without a response increased her anxiety. Eventually tears began falling. The secret she had been so afraid to reveal had finally come out. And the consequences were exactly as painful as she feared. Across the city, Ethan stared at his own phone. Sophia's messages remained unread. Not because he hated her. Not because he wanted revenge. But because he didn't know what to say. Part of him missed her already. Part of him wanted to hear her voice. Part of him wanted an explanation. Yet another part felt betrayed. Why hadn't she trusted him? Why hadn't she told him the truth? Why had she allowed him to believe she was someone else? Questions filled his mind. Questions with no easy answers. As he sat alone in his apartment, he replayed their months together. The laughter, the conversations, the first kiss, the promises, none of it felt fake. And that made everything even more confusing. Because if their relationship had been real, then why had she lied? Neither Ethan nor Sophia slept much that night. Both stared at their phones. Both replayed memories. Both felt their hearts breaking. The love they had built over months now stood on the edge of collapse. And for the first time since meeting each other, they were completely alone. What neither of them realized was that someone else was watching this heartbreak unfold. Richard Williams, a father who loved his daughter more than anything in the world. And soon, he would decide to take matters into his own hands. Because he refused to watch Sophia lose the one man who might truly love her. No matter what it took, he intended to fight for her happiness. And that fight was only just beginning. The morning after Sophia's secret was exposed felt like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ethan's face. The confusion, the disbelief, The hurt, those final moments before the security guards pulled her away, replayed endlessly in her mind. She had imagined revealing the truth many times. In every version, she sat Ethan down privately. She explained everything. She told him about Daniel's betrayal. She told him why she disguised herself. She told him how much he meant to her. Then he would understand. Maybe he would be shocked. Maybe he would be angry. But eventually he would understand. Instead, the truth had exploded in the worst possible way. In front of reporters. In front of strangers. In front of cameras. And now the man she loved wouldn't even answer her calls. Sophia stared at her phone. Nothing. No messages. No calls. No response. The silence hurt more than she expected. Much more. Slowly, she typed another message. Ethan, please talk to me. She stared at the screen for several moments before pressing send. The message delivered. But no reply came. Sophia placed the phone down and buried her face in her hands. Tears immediately followed. For months she had worried about losing Ethan. Now it seemed her worst fear had become reality. Across the city, Ethan sat alone inside his apartment. His phone rested on the table nearby. Sophia's messages continued arriving, one after another, yet he couldn't bring himself to read them. Not because he hated her, not because he wanted to hurt her, because he was hurt, deeply hurt. The woman he loved had hidden an enormous part of her life. Not a small secret, not an embarrassing story, an entirely different identity. He remembered the first time they met, the free meal, the long conversations, the laughter, the friendship, the kiss. Had any of it been real, or had he simply been part of some strange experiment? The thought made his stomach twist. His assistant, Mark, sat across from him. The two men had been friends for years. Mark watched Ethan quietly. You love her. Ethan sighed. I know. Then why are you avoiding her? Ethan looked away. Because I don't know what to think. Mark nodded. That much was obvious. Do you think she was pretending? Ethan didn't answer immediately, because honestly he wasn't sure. No. The answer surprised even him. Mark leaned forward. Then what's the problem? Ethan rubbed his forehead. The problem is that she didn't trust me. The words came out heavier than expected. She spent months hiding the truth. Mark considered that. Fair point. Ethan stared out the window. If she loved me, why didn't she tell me? Unfortunately, neither of them had an answer. Meanwhile, Sophia remained trapped inside her own misery. She stopped going to the amusement park. There was no point. The place that once brought her happiness now reminded her of Ethan. Every corner carried memories. Every pathway reminded her of moments they shared. The thought became unbearable. Days passed. Then more days. Still nothing. Every morning she checked her phone. Every night she checked again. No replies. No calls. No signs of forgiveness. Richard watched his daughter carefully. The transformation worried him. Only weeks earlier she had been happier than he had seen her in years. Now she looked devastated. The sadness had returned. Perhaps worse than before. One evening he found her sitting alone on the mansion's balcony. She stared at the city lights below. Tears glistened in her eyes. Richard quietly sat beside her. Neither spoke immediately. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. I lost him. Richard frowned. You don't know that. She laughed bitterly. Dad, he won't answer me. Her voice cracked. He won't even read my messages. Richard listened quietly. Sophia continued. I should have told him. Maybe. I kept waiting for the perfect moment. Fresh tears appeared. And now there isn't going to be a moment. Richard's heart ached. Watching his daughter suffer was one of the few things money couldn't fix. He had built billion-dollar companies, created successful businesses, solved countless problems. Yet seeing Sophia cry made him feel helpless. For a moment, he simply placed an arm around her shoulders, like he had done when she was a child. Then he made a decision, a very important decision. The following morning, Richard arrived at his office earlier than usual. His assistants immediately noticed the serious expression on his face. One of them approached cautiously. "Good morning, sir." Richard nodded. "I need information." "What kind of information?" The billionaire leaned forward. "A man named Ethan." The assistant blinked. "The food vendor from the park?" Richard smiled slightly. "Good. You already know who he is." The assistant nodded. Everyone close to Richard knew about Sophia's disguise. And everyone knew about Ethan. The assistant opened a notebook. "What exactly do you need?" "Everything." Within hours, Richard received a detailed report. Not because he intended to intimidate Ethan. Quite the opposite. He wanted to know whether Ethan truly deserved Sophia. The more he read, the more impressed he became. No criminal record. No scandals. No suspicious history. No evidence of greed. No evidence of manipulation. Nothing. Instead, Richard found stories about hard work, kindness, integrity, community service, helping others. The report confirmed what Sophia had been saying all along. Ethan was a good man, a genuinely good man. Richard closed the file. Then he smiled. The situation was simple. Sophia loved Ethan. Ethan loved Sophia. The problem wasn't love. The problem was misunderstanding. And misunderstandings could be fixed. That afternoon, Sophia sat inside her room staring at old photos on her phone. Most featured the amusement park. Many included Ethan. One picture showed him laughing while trying to teach her how to prepare food. Another showed them standing near the Ferris wheel. Looking at the images felt like reopening a wound. Yet she couldn't stop. A knock interrupted her thoughts. "Come in." Richard entered. Sophia quickly wiped away tears. "Dad." He sat beside her. "We need to talk." The seriousness in his voice immediately caught her attention. "What is it?" Richard looked directly at her. "Do you love him?" Sophia didn't hesitate. "Yes." The answer came instantly, without doubt, without uncertainty. Richard nodded. "And if he forgave you?" Hope flickered across her face. "Of course." "Then stop acting like you've already lost." Sophia frowned. "What do you mean?" Richard stood. A determined expression appeared on his face. "I'm going to speak with him." Her eyes widened. "Dad, no." "Why not?" "Because he'll think you're trying to buy him off." Richard laughed. "Trust me." Sophia looked unconvinced. "Dad." "Sophia." The billionaire's voice softened. "You spent months searching for someone who loved you for who you are." She nodded. "I think you found him." The words hit her emotionally, because deep down she believed they were true. Richard continued. "And if that's true, then he's worth fighting for." Fresh tears appeared. This time they weren't entirely sad. For the first time in days, hope returned. Small, fragile, but real. Across the city, Ethan continued struggling with his emotions. Every day he expected the anger to fade. Every day he expected clarity to arrive. Instead, confusion remained. One evening he found himself scrolling through old messages from Sophia. Despite everything, they still made him smile. That realization frustrated him. He should have been furious. Instead, he missed her. Terribly. He missed her laugh, her jokes, her stubbornness, her smile. Most of all, he missed talking to her. The silence felt wrong, unnatural, painful. As he sat alone in his apartment, his phone suddenly buzzed. His heart jumped instinctively. For one brief moment, he hoped it was Sophia. It wasn't. Yet the reaction revealed something important. Something he had been trying to ignore. He still loved her. No amount of confusion could change that. No amount of hurt could erase it. The love remained. Even if he wasn't ready to admit it. Even if he wasn't ready to forgive her. Deep inside it remained. Waiting. Late that night, Richard Williams stood in his office overlooking the city skyline. The lights of the city stretched endlessly before him. His decision was made. Tomorrow he would find Ethan. Tomorrow he would tell him the truth. The entire truth. Not as a billionaire. Not as a powerful businessman. But as a father. A father trying to help his daughter. Because Richard knew something Ethan did not. Sophia's disguise had never been a game. It had never been a joke. It had never been an experiment. It had been the desperate act of a woman whose heart had been broken too many times. A woman searching for something money could never buy. Real love. And Richard believed Ethan might be the one person capable of giving it to her. The question was whether Ethan would be willing to listen. And that answer would change all of their lives forever. The next morning, Richard Williams woke up with a clear purpose. For days he had watched his daughter suffer. He had watched her cry herself to sleep. He had watched her stare endlessly at her phone, hoping for a message that never came. He had watched the happiness Ethan brought into her life disappear almost overnight. And as a father, it broke his heart. Richard knew he couldn't force Ethan to forgive Sophia. He couldn't buy forgiveness. He couldn't demand it. But he could make sure Ethan knew the truth. The whole truth. After that, the decision would belong entirely to him. Standing before the mirror in his bedroom, Richard adjusted his tie and smiled faintly. For one of the few times in his life, he wasn't heading into a board meeting. He wasn't negotiating a business deal. He wasn't acquiring a company. Today, he was simply a father fighting for his daughter's happiness. And somehow, that felt more important than any business transaction he had ever completed. Across town, Ethan opened his food stall as usual. At least, he tried to. His heart wasn't in it. Ever since Sophia's secret had been exposed, he found it difficult to focus. Customers spoke to him. He smiled automatically. Orders arrived. He prepared them. But his mind remained elsewhere. On Sophie. Or rather, Sophia. The woman he loved. The woman who had lied to him. The woman he missed every single day. The conflict inside him felt exhausting. Part of him remained angry. Part of him remained hurt. Yet another part couldn't stop remembering the countless moments they had shared. The way she laughed. The way she listened. The way her eyes lit up whenever she became excited. Those memories refused to disappear. Around noon, one of his employees approached him. "Ethan." "Yeah." The young man pointed toward the park entrance. "I think someone important is looking for you." Ethan frowned. Important? That wasn't usually a good sign. Curious, he followed the employee's gaze. His eyes widened immediately. Standing near the entrance was Richard Williams. The Richard Williams, owner of the amusement park. One of the wealthiest men in the country. Sophia's father. Ethan felt his stomach tighten. For a brief moment, panic flashed through his mind. Why was he here? Had he done something wrong? Was he about to lose his business? A dozen possibilities raced through his head. Then Richard smiled warmly and began walking toward him. The smile eased some of Ethan's anxiety. But not much. "Mr. Williams." Richard extended his hand. "Ethan." They shook hands. Richard's grip was firm, confident, yet surprisingly friendly. "Do you have a few minutes?" Ethan hesitated. "Of course." Richard glanced toward the food stall. "Somewhere private?" Ethan nodded. A few minutes later, they sat together inside a small cafe located within the amusement park. The atmosphere felt strangely tense. Ethan wasn't sure what to expect. Richard ordered 2 coffees. Then silence settled between them. Finally, Ethan spoke. "If this is about Sophia." "It is." Richard didn't bother pretending otherwise. Ethan sighed. Part of him had expected that. Richard folded his hands together. "I know you're hurt." Ethan looked away. The billionaire continued. "And honestly, I don't blame you." That response surprised Ethan. He had expected excuses, defensiveness, maybe even pressure. Instead, Richard sounded sincere. "I'd probably feel the same way in your position." Ethan remained silent. Richard leaned back. "But before you make any final decisions, I need you to hear something." "What?" "The truth." Ethan almost laughed. "The truth would have been nice a few months ago." Richard nodded. "Fair." The billionaire didn't appear offended. If anything, he seemed to respect Ethan's honesty. For several moments, Richard simply stared into his coffee. Then he began speaking. "Do you know how many men have dated Sophia?" Ethan blinked. That wasn't the question he expected. "No, neither do I." Richard smiled sadly. "I lost count years ago." Ethan listened quietly. Richard continued. Most of them weren't interested in her. The pain in his voice immediately caught Ethan's attention. They were interested in what came with her. The money, the influence, the inheritance. Ethan frowned. Richard nodded. Exactly. He stared out the cafe window. For years, I watched my daughter fall in love. His voice softened. And for years, I watched people betray her. Something about those words felt painfully genuine. Not billionaire to employee, father to father, heartbroken parent to concerned listener. Richard continued. Some asked for expensive gifts. Some wanted investments. Some saw her as a shortcut to wealth. Ethan felt his anger slowly giving way to curiosity, because suddenly the situation seemed larger than he realized. Richard sighed. Then came Daniel. Ethan frowned. Daniel, her last boyfriend. Richard's expression darkened. She genuinely loved him. Ethan immediately disliked where this story was heading. One look at Richard's face told him it wasn't going to end well. A few moments later, Richard explained everything. The restaurant, the overheard conversation, the discussion about inheritance, the plans to gain access to the family fortune, the betrayal, the heartbreak. Ethan listened quietly. By the time Richard finished, silence filled the cafe. The story hurt to hear, not because Ethan knew Daniel, but because he knew Sophia, and he could easily imagine how devastated she must have felt. Richard spoke softly. That night she cried for hours. His eyes became distant. I could hear her from outside her room. The billionaire shook his head. I've built companies worth billions. His voice cracked slightly. But I couldn't fix that. Ethan looked down. For the first time since the truth emerged, he found himself seeing events from Sophia's perspective. Not his own. Hers. Richard continued. Then I came up with an idea. Ethan already knew what idea that was. The disguise. The rickshaw. The fake identity. Yet hearing the reason behind it changed everything. She wasn't trying to trick people. Richard said the words carefully. She was trying to protect herself. Ethan remained silent. She wanted someone to see her. Richard pointed gently toward Ethan. Not my money. Not my company. Not my last name. Her. The simplicity of those words hit Ethan harder than expected, because suddenly everything made sense. The disguise, the secrecy, the fear, the hesitation, all of it. Sophia hadn't been playing games. She had been terrified. Terrified of getting hurt again. Terrified of being loved for the wrong reasons. Terrified of discovering that genuine love didn't exist. Richard smiled faintly. Then she met you. Ethan looked up. The billionaire's expression softened. And for the first time in years, I saw my daughter happy. The words landed heavily. Richard laughed quietly. Actually, happy isn't the right word. What is? Alive. Ethan's chest tightened. Richard leaned forward. You gave her something nobody else could. What? Hope. For a moment neither spoke. Then Richard reached into his jacket pocket. He removed a folded photograph. Carefully, he placed it on the table. Ethan picked it up. The image showed Sophia sitting beside a fountain inside the amusement park. She was laughing. A genuine laugh. The kind impossible to fake. She didn't know this picture was taken. Richard smiled. I took it from a distance. Ethan stared at the photograph. The happiness on her face was undeniable. After Daniel, she stopped smiling. Richard paused. Then she met you. The cafe suddenly felt very quiet. Ethan remembered their first meeting. The free meal. The conversations. The friendship. The kiss. None of it felt fake. Not a single moment. Richard spoke again. Did she make a mistake? Yes. The billionaire nodded. She should have told you sooner. Ethan appreciated the honesty. But Ethan. Richard's voice softened. Everything else was real. The statement lingered between them, because deep down Ethan already knew it was true. The feelings had been real. The laughter had been real. The love had been real. Even the pain he felt now proved that. After all, you couldn't miss someone this much if they meant nothing. Richard stood slowly. I didn't come here to pressure you. Ethan looked up. I came here because my daughter loves you. The billionaire smiled sadly. And because I think you love her too. With that, Richard placed a business card on the table. Then he turned and walked away, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts. And there were many thoughts. Too many. For a long time, Ethan remained seated, staring at the photograph, remembering, thinking, questioning. Then gradually, something inside him began to change. The anger that had consumed him for days started fading. Not disappearing entirely, but softening, making room for understanding, making room for compassion, making room for love. Because Richard had been right about one thing. Despite everything that happened, despite the lies, despite the confusion, despite the hurt, Ethan still loved Sophia. And perhaps it was finally time to stop running from that truth. As he stared at Richard's business card, a decision slowly formed in his mind. A decision that would change everything. For the first time since the truth came out, he picked up his phone and stared at Sophia's name. Sophia sat alone on the balcony of her bedroom as the evening sun slowly disappeared behind the city skyline. The past few days had felt like years. Every morning she woke up hoping to see a message from Ethan. Every night she went to sleep disappointed. The silence had become unbearable. No matter how hard she tried to stay hopeful, her heart continued sinking deeper into sadness. She missed him, not just a little, not just occasionally. She missed him every second of every day. She missed their conversations. She missed his smile. She missed hearing him laugh. She missed the way he always made ordinary moments feel special. Most of all, she missed feeling understood. Sophia stared down at her phone. Still nothing. She sighed heavily. Perhaps this was the end. Perhaps she had ruined the best thing that had ever happened to her. Tears gathered in her eyes once again. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear someone enter the room. A gentle knock finally pulled her attention away. Come in. The door opened. Richard stepped inside. His expression immediately softened when he saw her. You haven't eaten. Sophia forced a weak smile. I'm not hungry. You said that yesterday. And the day before. Richard walked closer. For a moment he simply stood beside her. Then he spoke. I met Ethan. Sophia's heart stopped. Immediately she turned toward him. What? The sudden hope in her eyes broke Richard's heart. You met him? Richard nodded. Sophia stood so quickly that her chair nearly fell over. What did he say? Did he ask about me? Was he angry? Does he hate me? The questions poured out rapidly. Richard raised a hand. One at a time. Sophia waited anxiously. For a moment, Richard considered how to answer. Then he smiled. He listened. Sophia's eyes widened. He listened. Richard nodded. I told him everything. Relief mixed with nervousness. What happened after that? Richard chuckled. That part is up to him. The answer wasn't entirely satisfying, but it was enough to give her something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Real hope. Meanwhile, Ethan sat alone inside his apartment. Richard's words continued echoing through his mind. Everything else was real. The sentence refused to leave him alone. Every memory now looked different. When he first learned the truth, all he could see was the deception. Now he saw something else. Fear. Sophia hadn't hidden her identity because she wanted to hurt him. She had hidden it because she was terrified. Terrified of losing another person she loved. Terrified of being used. Terrified of repeating old mistakes. The more Ethan thought about it, the more he understood. That didn't erase the pain, but it changed it. For the first time, he found himself seeing the situation through her eyes. And once he did, something became painfully obvious. Sophia had suffered too, perhaps even more than he had. He remembered her messages, the dozens of unanswered messages, the calls, the apologies, the desperate attempts to explain. Slowly, Ethan opened his phone. Her messages remained exactly where he had left them, unread, waiting. His chest tightened. He opened the first one. Please let me explain. Then another. I never wanted to hurt you. Another. Everything between us was real. Then another. I miss you. Ethan closed his eyes. Those 4 words hit harder than anything else. Because he missed her too. Terribly. He stared at her contact information for a long time. Eventually he stood. A decision had been made. He wasn't going to send a text. He wasn't going to make a phone call. Some conversations were too important for screens. If they were going to talk, they would do it face to face. At the Williams mansion, Sophia sat quietly in the living room. Night had fallen. The house felt unusually silent. Richard had returned to his office. Most of the staff had gone home. Sophia remained alone with her thoughts. A small part of her felt hopeful after hearing about Richard's conversation with Ethan. Yet another part remained afraid. What if Ethan still couldn't forgive her? What if Richard's visit changed nothing? What if she had already lost him forever? A sudden knock echoed through the mansion. Sophia barely noticed. One of the household staff walked toward the entrance. A few moments later, hurried footsteps approached. The butler appeared in the living room. Miss Sophia. She looked up. Yes. The older man smiled. Someone is here to see you. Sophia frowned. At this hour? Who? The butler's smile widened. You should probably see for yourself. Her heart immediately began racing. For reasons she couldn't explain, she already knew. Before her mind could process the possibility, her feet were moving. She hurried toward the front entrance. Faster, faster. Then she reached the door and froze. Standing on the other side was Ethan. For a moment, neither moved, neither spoke, neither seemed capable of breathing. Sophia's eyes filled with tears instantly. She had imagined this moment countless times. Yet now that it was happening, she couldn't find words. Ethan. His name emerged as little more than a whisper. Ethan looked just as emotional. The silence stretched between them, heavy with weeks of pain, weeks of confusion, weeks of heartbreak. Finally, Ethan spoke. Hi. Sophia laughed through her tears. The simple greeting somehow made her cry even harder. Hi. Neither knew what to say next. Neither knew where to begin. There was too much history, too much emotion, too much hurt. Finally, Ethan stepped forward. We need to talk. Sophia nodded immediately. Yes. They moved into a private sitting room nearby. The atmosphere felt tense. Not because they were angry, because they cared, because the conversation mattered. They sat across from each other. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Then Sophia broke. I'm sorry. The words burst from her before she could stop them. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm so sorry. Ethan watched quietly. Sophia continued. I never wanted to hurt you. Her voice trembled. I wanted to tell you. I really did. She wiped her eyes. But every time I tried, I got scared. The confession felt raw, honest, painful. I was afraid. Ethan listened. Afraid you'd leave. Afraid you'd hate me. Afraid I'd lose you. Her shoulders shook. And then everything happened so fast. Fresh tears fell. The reporter. The crowd. The cameras. Sophia lowered her head. I never wanted you to find out like that. Silence followed. The room felt incredibly still. Finally, Ethan spoke. I know. Sophia looked up, surprised. Ethan smiled sadly. Your father told me everything. The mention of Richard made her blink. He did. He did. For a moment neither spoke. Then Ethan sighed. I was angry. Sophia nodded. I know. I felt betrayed. Her eyes filled with fresh tears. I know. Ethan looked down briefly, then back at her. But I also realized something. Sophia waited. You weren't trying to trick me. The words instantly shattered the last wall between them. Sophia began crying again. This time from relief. Because he understood. Finally, he understood. Ethan continued. You were scared. She nodded. Very. He smiled softly. I should have listened sooner. Sophia shook her head. No. I should have trusted you. Neither blamed the other anymore. Both were simply tired of being apart. Tired of hurting. Tired of pretending they didn't miss each other. Ethan leaned forward slightly. I missed you. The words nearly broke her. because they were exactly what she needed to hear. Sophia laughed through her tears. I missed you too. Every day. Every day. A smile appeared on Ethan's face. The first genuine smile she had seen from him since the truth emerged. Without thinking, Sophia moved closer. Ethan did the same. Then suddenly all the distance between them disappeared. Sophia threw her arms around him. Ethan embraced her immediately, tightly, securely, as though neither wanted to let go. Months of friendship, months of love, weeks of pain. Everything seemed to melt away in that single embrace. Sophia buried her face against his shoulder. I thought I lost you. Her voice was barely audible. Ethan held her tighter. You didn't. Fresh tears filled her eyes. For the first time in weeks, they were tears of happiness. A short distance away, Richard stood quietly in the hallway. He hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but hearing laughter inside the room made him pause. The sound brought a smile to his face. His daughter was laughing again. That alone made everything worthwhile. He quietly turned and walked away, giving them privacy, giving them space, giving them the future they deserved. Several hours later, Sophia and Ethan sat together in the mansion's garden beneath a sky full of stars. Neither wanted the evening to end. They talked for hours, about everything, about the past, about the future, about mistakes, about forgiveness, about love. This time there were no secrets, no disguises, no lies, just honesty, just trust, just two people who had finally found their way back to each other. As Ethan gently squeezed her hand, Sophia smiled. For the first time in a long time, her heart felt completely at peace. The storm had passed, and what remained was stronger than ever. Neither of them knew exactly what the future held, but they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever came next, they would face it together. And very soon, Ethan would make a decision that would change both of their lives forever. 6 months after their reunion, life looked very different for Sophia and Ethan. The painful days of separation had become distant memories. The fear, confusion, and heartbreak that once threatened to destroy their relationship had been replaced by something much stronger. Trust, understanding, and love. Real love. The kind Sophia had spent her entire life searching for. The kind Ethan never expected to find. For the first time since they met, there were no secrets between them. No disguises. No hidden identities. No walls. Just honesty. And every day their relationship grew stronger. Ethan continued operating his food business, though business had exploded after the public learned he was dating Sophia Williams. Customers traveled from different cities just to visit his food stall. At first, Ethan worried that the attention would change things, but Sophia made sure it didn't. She constantly reminded him why she fell in love with him. Not because he was famous. Not because people talked about him. Not because of his growing success. She loved him because he was Ethan, the same kind-hearted man who had once given a hungry rickshaw puller a free meal. And Ethan loved her for exactly the same reason. Not because she was rich. Not because she was beautiful. Not because she was the daughter of a billionaire. He loved her because she was Sophia, the woman who made him laugh, the woman who challenged him, the woman who had become his best friend. As months passed, even Richard noticed how perfect they were together. One evening, he watched them walking through the gardens outside the mansion. Sophia was laughing. Ethan was smiling. Neither seemed aware they were being watched. Richard quietly shook his head. A smile appeared on his face. After everything his daughter had endured, seeing her happy felt like a blessing. For years he had worried about what would happen after he was gone. Who would protect her? Who would love her? Who would see beyond the fortune? Now he had his answer. Ethan. And that knowledge brought him peace. One Saturday afternoon, Ethan stood inside his apartment staring at a small velvet box. His heart raced. His palms felt sweaty. His thoughts were a complete mess. Mark, his longtime friend, watched him with amusement. You look terrified. Ethan sighed. I am terrified. Mark laughed. You're proposing, not robbing a bank. Easy for you to say. The velvet box remained in Ethan's hands. Inside was a beautiful engagement ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. For weeks he had been planning this moment. For weeks he had imagined how everything would happen. Yet now that the day had finally arrived, he suddenly felt nervous. Very nervous. What if she says no? Mark nearly choked. Ethan. What? She's obsessed with you. Ethan rolled his eyes. That's not helpful. Mark laughed. You literally survived billionaires, reporters, misunderstandings, and heartbreak. He pointed at the ring. I think you'll survive a proposal. Despite himself, Ethan smiled. Maybe Mark was right. Maybe he was overthinking things. Then again, proposing to the love of your life wasn't exactly a small event. Taking a deep breath, Ethan placed the ring in his pocket. It was time. Meanwhile, Sophia had no idea what was coming. She believed Ethan had invited her to the amusement park for an ordinary evening together. Nothing unusual. Nothing suspicious. Just another date. Which explained why she looked genuinely confused when she arrived and found the park strangely empty. The sun was beginning to set. Golden light illuminated the attractions. The colorful rides glowed beautifully. Yet most of the park seemed closed. Sophia frowned. What's going on? Ethan smiled mysteriously. You'll see. She narrowed her eyes. That answer always worries me. Ethan laughed. Trust me. Sophia took his hand. The simple gesture still made her happy. Even after all these months. Together they walked deeper into the park. As they passed various attractions, Sophia noticed something unusual. Many of the workers were smiling. Almost knowingly. Maria waved excitedly. Mr. Harris grinned. Even several security guards appeared unusually cheerful. Sophia stopped walking. Okay. What? Something is definitely happening. Ethan tried to appear innocent. I have no idea what you're talking about. You are a terrible liar. He laughed. That much was true. Eventually they reached a familiar location. Sophia immediately recognized it. The food stall. The very place where everything had begun. The place where Ethan gave her a free meal. The place where their friendship started. The place where her life changed forever. The sight brought an emotional smile to her face. You brought me here. Ethan nodded. Of course. Soft lights decorated the area. Beautiful flowers surrounded the tables. The atmosphere felt magical. Sophia's heart swelled with emotion. She turned toward Ethan. This is beautiful. His smile softened. Not as beautiful as the woman standing beside me. Sophia laughed. That was cheesy. A little. A lot. They both laughed. For a moment they simply stood there together. Remembering. Reflecting. Appreciating how far they had come. Then Ethan's expression changed. Became serious. Tender. Emotional. Sophia immediately noticed. Her heart began beating faster. Ethan? He took both her hands. And suddenly she knew. The realization hit her instantly. Tears filled her eyes before he even spoke. Ethan? He smiled nervously. I know. Sophia laughed through her tears. The poor man looked absolutely terrified, which somehow made the moment even more adorable. Taking a deep breath, Ethan began speaking. Do you remember the first day we met? Sophia nodded. Of course. You were hungry. She laughed. Very hungry. I thought you looked exhausted. I was. His smile widened. At the time, I had no idea who you were. Sophia squeezed his hands gently. And I'm glad. So am I. For several moments he simply looked at her, as though trying to find the right words. Finally he spoke. You changed my life. Fresh tears rolled down Sophia's cheeks. Ethan continued. Before you came along, every day felt the same. His voice softened. Then suddenly there was you. The woman who made me smile. The woman who became my best friend. The woman who taught me that love doesn't care about social status. Sophia could barely breathe. Every word touched her heart. Ethan smiled. You loved me when I was just a food seller. And I loved you when I thought you were a rickshaw puller. They both laughed softly. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Then Ethan took a deep breath and slowly dropped to one knee. Sophia covered her mouth. Tears streamed freely down her face. The moment had arrived. Ethan removed the velvet box from his pocket, then opened it. The ring sparkled beneath the lights, yet Sophia barely noticed, because all she could see was him, the man she loved, the man who chose her, the man who saw her for who she truly was. Not Richard Williams' daughter, not a billionaire heiress, just Sophia. Ethan's voice trembled slightly. Sophia Williams. He smiled. I fell in love with you when you were Sophie. His eyes filled with emotion. And I fell even more in love with you when I learned who you really were. Sophia cried openly now. The tears were unstoppable. You are my best friend, my greatest blessing, and the most incredible person I've ever known. He held up the ring. So I need to ask you something. The entire world seemed to pause. Every worker nearby watched quietly. Maria wiped tears from her eyes. Mr. Harris smiled proudly. Even Richard, hidden at a distance, watched with emotion. Ethan looked directly into Sophia's eyes and asked the question she had dreamed of hearing. Sophia Williams. His smile widened. Will you marry me? For a brief moment, Sophia couldn't speak. She simply cried, laughed, and cried some more. Finally she nodded. Again, and again, and again. Yes. Her voice broke. Yes. More tears. More laughter. Then finally, yes. Cheers erupted immediately. Workers applauded. People celebrated. Maria screamed excitedly. Mr. Harris nearly dropped his hat. Sophia threw her arms around Ethan as he slipped the ring onto her finger. They embraced tightly, then kissed. A long, joyful kiss that symbolized everything they had overcome together. The crowd applauded even louder. And for the first time in her life, Sophia felt completely certain about her future. 3 months later, their wedding became one of the most talked about events in the country. Guests included business leaders, celebrities, politicians, and longtime friends. Yet despite the luxury and attention, the most important thing wasn't the venue, or the decorations, or the guest list. It was love. Pure, genuine love. As Sophia walked down the aisle, Ethan couldn't stop smiling. And when they exchanged vows, there wasn't a dry eye in sight. Especially not Richard's. The billionaire had spent years worrying that his daughter would never find someone who truly loved her. Now he stood proudly watching her marry the right man. The man who loved her before he knew she was rich. The man who saw her heart before he saw her fortune. As the ceremony ended and the celebration began, Richard quietly looked toward the night sky. A grateful smile appeared on his face. Money had given his daughter many things. Luxury, comfort, opportunity. But in the end, it couldn't give her the one thing she wanted most. Love. That had come from a simple food seller, a free meal, and a kind heart. As Ethan and Sophia danced beneath a sky full of stars, surrounded by friends, family, and endless happiness, they knew something important. Their journey had not been perfect. It had included heartbreak, secrets, misunderstandings, and pain. But every challenge had led them to this moment. The moment where two people who came from completely different worlds found exactly what they had been searching for. Each other. And together they lived happily ever after. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this channel.